It's been a decade since Bungie bid farewell to the legendary franchise it created and rode off into the distance. On the 14th of September 2010, they would release their last masterpiece. That means Halo Reach is now 10 years old. 10 years. It just goes to show how good of a game it is when even after all this time people are still playing it. And not only playing it, but also buying it again on PC in the form of the Master Chief Collection. But why is Reach such a beloved game in the series, despite its lack of the Master Chief and there being no actual Halo rings? Well, let's gear ourselves up as we remember and revisit this epic game and celebrate 10 years of Halo Reach. If, for some stupid reason you haven't played Halo Reach before, then I would strongly advise and recommend you do so before watching the video. So consider this your spoiler warning. Let's start with the campaign. And man is it a blast. Easily one of the strongest in the franchise. As soon as it starts, we're given a brief look at the world of Reach before being introduced to Noble Team, the group of Spartans who will become our best friends for the duration of the game. Noble 1, Carter, the leader. Noble 2, Kat, the brains of the group. Noble 3, June, silent but deadly. Noble 4, Emil, no nonsense and brute force. Noble 5, George, the gentle giant. And finally, Noble 6, wait, who is he? Oh yeah, it's you. Yes, you, the player, are the mysterious Noble 6. I think not making Noble 6 a scripted character, and instead having him, or her, be the player, was a great choice, because it meant that we felt more of a personal connection to the conflict. Almost like the game is saying, hey, you, player, this is your planet, so you better fight your ass off for it. Now, a lot of people criticise Reach by saying Noble Team aren't a very well developed bunch of characters. But that's okay, because really, they don't need to be. Reach was never meant to be a character-driven story. It's a game which focuses primarily on its setting. If it didn't, then the Covenant invasion wouldn't have felt anywhere near as threatening as it should. It really does feel like you're fighting a planetary war to protect your homeworld at all costs, and the game places you in so many different situations that actually make you feel like you're in a war.
Incoming! Might want to hold on to something.
Graphically, the game still holds up and looks great. It may be a bit dated in places, sure, but for a 10-year-old game, you can't really complain too much. One of the things that made Halo look great in the first place was the art style, which, in Reach, remains true to its original roots. Set pieces and environments look fantastic, and it really adds to the immersion. The classic level design is also maintained very well, and kind of reminds me of the level design in Combat Evolved. There's a perfect blend of both narrow enclosed spaces and open areas with multiple routes to take. While we're on the subject of environments and level design, this would be a good point for me to point out the skyboxes. Put simply, they're stunning, and really lend a sense of scale to the Covenant invasion, showcasing that there is so much more to this fight than just what's going on the ground. Hell, there were times I didn't even pay attention to the mission, and instead just watched what was going on in the background. The attention to detail is incredible, not just in the skyboxes, but in the game as a whole, and I wish more games cared this much. It shows there's way more going on than just what's on the ground in front of you. But what exactly is going on in front of you? Well, the events of a planetary invasion unfolding. And this is where our journey starts. We start off by investigating a crash site. From there we find ourselves defending a military base and clearing the skies before going behind enemy lines, searching for intel while sniping in the dark. We find ourselves in all-out vehicular warfare. There are times we have to extract civilians and rescue people from a city on the brink of destruction. We defend a top-secret lab deep underground and get to take control of a gigantic Mac cannon and blow the shit out of a fleet of Phantoms and Banshees. Hell, we even get to go to space and have a gigantic space battle above Reach. Long Night of Solace is such a good and unique mission in the series, so it blows my mind that this kind of thing hasn't appeared in a Halo game since, and I really can't think of a single reason why, because this isn't just one of the best moments in Reach, but in the franchise as a whole. And as I said earlier, the environments look amazing. Each mission has its own unique aesthetic, so nothing ever feels or looks the same. Now, given that the game is about fighting to protect something, it's only natural that we're going to experience loss along the way. And as you make your way through the campaign, and your comrades slowly start to fall one by one, you really start to feel just how relentless the Covenant are. You start to feel the hopelessness of fighting on. Yet, you do it anyway, because you're a Spartan. You don't quit. You stand until the end. And that final mission, that has to be one of the most emotional and best endings to anything in the world ever. It just gets me every time, and if it doesn't get you, you have a heart of stone. I don't think the game could have ended on a more perfect note. I don't think Bungie could have given us a better farewell. Now that we've covered environments and graphics and established that Reach has a crap ton of mission variety and a damn good campaign, it's time to focus on the gameplay and combat itself, an area that I feel had improved and expanded upon from previous games. The combat itself is much the same as any other Halo. Very smooth, very solid, feels amazing. However, it's the additions that made Reach's gameplay feel more evolved. Firstly, we got a new enemy in the form of skirmishers, which are basically super fast, agile jackals that are super precise with their weapon, though thankfully nowhere near as accurate as those bullshit jackal snipers from Halo 2. Yep, thankfully there's none of this shit in Reach, but they're still really annoying to kill because they're so damn fast. There's these things called Kuta, which, well, there are only 2 in the whole game, and after that they're never seen or heard of again, so that's weird. Engineers returned from ODST, but were still a piece of piss to kill, and this is the only game since Halo 2 where we get to fight both elites and brutes in the same campaign, so that added to the combat. However, I think it's a shame they didn't find a way to implement the Flood into the campaign, given that this was an enemy in both Halo Wars and Combat Evolved, games that came before and after Reach, so I think it would have been cool for them to find a way to put the Flood in. I'm sure it could have been done. It would have been awesome, but hey, I guess you can't have everything. Now, what else was good about the gameplay? Well, the weapons, of course, and as well as the standard weapons that we've seen in all the games prior, Reach gave us a ton of new toys to play with. We got introduced to the DMR, which is now a series staple. We also got the grenade launcher, target locator, plasma repeater, plasma launcher, needler rifle, focus rifle, and concussion rifle. Unfortunately, minus the DMR and plasma caster, all the new weapons are exclusive to Reach and aren't found in any other game, which is a shame. But since we're talking about weapons, can we just take a moment to commend whoever was in charge of the sound design?
They're headed into the basement. Move down to the lower level. need that AA gun offline now.
Yeah, the guns sound awesome. They even gave us some new vehicles as well. So aside from the standard ones that we see in every Halo game, there's the Falcon, the Saber, and the Revenant, which is basically a smaller, faster version of the Wraith, but not as powerful. They did take a couple of vehicles out, which was a shame, but I still like the new ones. The game also introduced us to the Seraph, but this only appeared in one mission and you couldn't fly it. But it was cool to fight against something new. And then, just when you thought the gameplay couldn't get any better, Bungie goes and adds armor abilities. A controversial aspect of the game, to be sure, especially in multiplayer, but I for one loved them, because they gave you more tactical options during combat. Sprint is your standard, get over there slightly quicker option. Armor lock allowed you to be temporarily invulnerable, which was great if you found yourself coming under fire from heavy munitions. And if you were skilled enough and activated it at the right time, you could even use it to destroy vehicles. Because of that, however, fuck armor lock in multiplayer. Yep, you all know why. The jetpack enabled you to get to places you otherwise couldn't, and in some cases allowed you to hijack out of reach vehicles, so that was always fun. Plus it was just fun to dick around with and see what crazy places you could get to on the maps. The drop shield is there to save you if you're out in the open and need immediate cover from enemies. It even regenerates your health, so it's a pretty handy piece of kit. But be advised, it don't do shit against vehicles. Active camo turns you invisible if you want some silent, stealthy gameplay, but that never really works out for me. The hologram projects a 3D identical image of your character, and you use it to try and fool enemies into what direction you're going. The problem with this, I found though, is that the AI is so damn smart in this game that I've rarely seen it work well, especially on higher difficulties. Lastly, there's Evade, which is a much better, faster getaway option than Sprint. It allows you to close the gap on your enemies and kind of makes you feel like an elite, which is cool. The only downside is that this is the only armor ability that doesn't appear in the campaign, so if you want to use it, you're going to have to head over to multiplayer and or firefight. The great thing is that the more you play, the more you work out a strategy for using these different abilities, which comes in handy, especially on the higher difficulties. And be warned, because on higher difficulties, this game is tough. Legendary in particular, as you'd expect, is brutal. Certainly there's no legendary Halo 2 bullshit going on here, thank God. But you've still got your work cut out for you for sure, especially towards the end. If you're not strategizing and using the right weapon and armor abilities to your advantage, you're gonna die. Fast. And lots. It's very challenging, but it never feels unfair. And thanks to the return of the health system, I'd say Reach is the most balanced Halo game since Combat Evolved. And I'd say difficulty-wise, it sits very comfortably between CE and Halo 3. CE being slightly easier, and Halo 3 being slightly harder. The PC version of Reach for MCC added data pads to the campaign, which are fun little things to collect throughout the missions. Each mission has at least two. One which can be found on any kind of playthrough, and the other which can only be found on Legendary. So if you're interested in the lore and the backstory of the Halo universe, then it's definitely worth hunting for these, although some of them are in really obscure places.
I need more time. Whatever you have to do, do it.
There's some cool hidden Easter eggs throughout the game too. You've got the invisible elite at the beginning of Winter Contingency, which only appears on Legendary. Being able to fly a Pelican and Phantom on New Alexandria, the same mission you can activate the Covenant nightclub on. You're able to enter Halsey's lab, again this is exclusive to Legendary, and the game even lets you see Master Chief if you pan the camera to the right during this cutscene. And how can we possibly talk about a Halo campaign and not mention the music? Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore have become legends in the industry. Like the other Halo games, there are so many standout moments when it comes to the soundtrack. These guys know exactly how to set the perfect atmosphere. Every mission has its own distinct track which complements the tone of that specific mission. I think it's safe to say that Reach's campaign is simply incredible and one that offers so much replay value. It easily ranks among the best in the franchise, and maybe even the genre. Bungie certainly gave us an experience we'll never forget. The multiplayer in Reach managed to strike a balance between fun, competitive, and fair, at least in my opinion. It's why it remains my favourite multiplayer in the series. There's plenty of great maps, both big and small, with good map rotation, and plenty of game modes. You've got Slayer, Big Team Battle, Capture the Flag, Griffball, King of the Hill, Infection, and Invasion. And that's just the standard modes. Just look at how many variants of modes there are. I mean, this is crazy. It mixed things up a bit too by spawning players with the same weapons but giving them a choice of different armor abilities. So in some ways, it was a homage to the older arena-type multiplayer games, with the better weapons being scattered around the map. No OP loadouts here, thank you very much. Not only that, but every weapon and vehicle that is usable in the campaign can also be used in the multiplayer. Well, minus the saber, because for some reason, no one at Bungie had the bright idea to speak up and say, "Hey, why don't we have space battles in multiplayer?" Yeah, that was a huge missed opportunity for sure. And while it's nice to be able to use the whole weapon sandbox in multiplayer, I still think the DMR, awesome as it is way overused. But you can change that, because custom games allows you to take any game mode and completely change it up. You can literally customize the rules to your liking. You can mess around with the time limits, the score limits, choose what weapons everyone has. You can literally create so many variations that it will keep you playing for hours. There's such a vast array of options for you to customize. And you can be so creative with what you do. But what if I told you the game modes aren't the only thing you can customize? Oh no, my friends. You even got to customize your Spartan to your liking. Yep, you can change the colour of their armour, give them a cool emblem, unlock different armour pieces and sets, choose between a cool range of armour effects, and even change the voice of your Spartan, though that only took place in firefight mode. It's awesome that they gave us this level of customization, and they even let it carry over into the campaign, so that Noble 6 could look however you want. You could even have this guy looking like the Master Chief if you wanted. That's just cool. And all of this stuff is in the game as standard. There's no bullshit microtransactions or loot boxes to be found. Instead, it's all unlocked with Reach's credit system. Credits that you earned from playing and finishing matches, doing the objectives, getting kills, and completing daily, monthly, and weekly challenges across campaign, multiplayer, and firefight. Or at least that used to be how unlocks worked. Since the game came out as part of the Master Chief Collection on PC, for some reason they thought it would be a great idea to completely redesign the unlock system into a tier-based system. See, there are now 10 tiers, and each tier has 10 unlocks, which, when MCC PC first came out, you had to unlock in a predetermined order using unlock tokens which you gained from leveling up and nothing else. Yeah, which meant you had to grind, and that sucked. It also sucked that you had to unlock all 10 before moving to the next tier. Thankfully, however, they've recently changed how it works in an update, in which they brought back challenges, so you no longer have to wait till you've leveled up to earn a token, although it still grants you one every time you do. And while you still have to unlock all 10 before moving to the next tier, you can at least now unlock items in any order you want, which is an improvement. But personally, I still much prefer the credit system from the Xbox 360 version of the game, because the things we chose to unlock with our hard-earned credits meant that it was a much more personal choice, instead of having to just simply unlock what the game wanted you to in a certain order. It just takes some of the freedom of choice out of the customization, and isn't as fun to unlock stuff. Overall though, I feel Reach's customization remains strong, and is a solid part of the game. For players with a bit more of a creative mind, Forge mode returned from Halo 3. Now I honestly can't say much about Forge because I hardly played it as my creative skills completely suck, and I never really had the patience to learn the mechanics of it all and how it worked. But as far as I know, Reach improved on the foundations set by Halo 3. I'm pretty sure it added some new features, and some of the maps people created were pretty awesome. I'm even certain people were able to create their own game modes within Forge. Having this amount of creative freedom is something I think more games should offer, because it definitely adds to the overall replay value. So while I can't say much about this mode because of my lack of experience with it, I can say that it's a cool feature for those looking for something a bit different.
Firefight. Spartan, we cannot let this area fall into Covenant hands.
Finally, we gotta talk about Firefight. Essentially Reach's Horde mode. Taken from ODST and expanded on in so many ways, this was easily one of the best parts of the game, where you and up to 3 other people could team up and fight increasingly difficult waves of Covenant. And like the multiplayer, you could play in a pre-made match with set rules, or just simply make your own rules. It was nice to have a mode where you didn't have to think much in order to win. You could just kick back, relax, and have fun without having to focus on story-related stuff, and just jump straight in and kick some alien ass. Okay, so the rounds did get harder the longer you held out, but it never got ridiculously hard, unless you told it to. But regardless, this mode was, and still is, insanely fun. I can't tell you how many hours I've spent in Firefight alone, just using all the different weapons and smashing the crap out of the Covenant, getting insanely long kill streaks and just generally seeing how long it took before I got too cocky and ended up dying. There's a good reason why it remains a very popular mode to this day, which is all the more reason why it's such a shame that we haven't seen it in a Halo game since. That's gotta be a big hint for you, 343. When you put the full package together, the story, setting, characters, gameplay, combat, environments, level design, mission variety, soundtrack, multiplayer, firefight, forge, customization, it really isn't hard to see why the game is still so beloved and ranks very highly in the franchise. Bungie didn't just give us another Halo game. No. They brought the franchise full circle, pulled out all the stops, and gave the fans a memorable experience. And it was a love letter to one of the greatest video game series ever created. A game so brimmed with content, it's still being played a decade later, where people are still creating new things within it. Bungie managed to make an iconic series of games, and with Halo Reach, they certainly sent themselves out with a bang. I do plan on bringing more Halo content to the channel, as well as full playthroughs of all the games. But there'll be another time for that. So for now, it's time to give this game the send-off it deserves. And since Reach is all about making a final stand, I think I'll say my thank yous and goodbyes now, and leave you with what I think is the greatest, most heroic and most noble final stand in video game history. And remember, Spartans never die, they're just missing in action.
It didn't take long for Reach to fall. Our enemy was ruthless, efficient, but they weren't nearly fast enough. For you had already passed the torch, and because of you, we found Halo, unlocked its secrets, shattered our enemy's resolve. Our victory, your victory, was so close. I wish you could have lived to see it. But you belong to Reach. Your body, your armor, all burned and turned to glass. Everything. Except your courage. That you gave to us. And with it, we can rebuild.